Welcome to Northgard, brother. A land filled with mystery, danger, riches, and warring clans of Northmen who have set sail to explore and conquer these new shores. Will you bring fame to your clan, writing history through your conquest, trade, and devotion to the gods? Or will you be defeated, meeting Odin in Valhalla? I'm Wise, aka Thomas, from wisegamer.com, and this is my review of Northgard, an early access strategy game from Shiro Games. Alright guys, let's take a look at Northgard. Hopefully you like my intro there. I was trying to do some type of Norse accent and it turned out to be quite Australian instead, so I apologize for that if it sounded a little weird. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm just trying to have a little bit of fun with it. So let's go ahead and talk about the storyline here. Now, in most strategy games, there's usually not too much of a storyline or anything like that. They just kind of follow a theme or an influence. So in Northgard, you're basically in control of a Viking clan that's seeking to expand its borders and conquer the land that you're generated on. And I say generated because the map itself is procedurally generated when you came onto it. Now basically you have to defend yourself from these different beasts and other clans that are all fighting for the same territory, and through different wind conditions you can take over and basically control the area that you're trying to conquer here. So the story basically follows, typical Norse tradition. So again, in strategy games there's not much storyline, just having that influence of the Viking theme. Now moving into gameplay, this is probably the biggest chunk I'll talk about here because that's the most important in my opinion. So Northgard is totally a strategy game. It's a top-down strategy game with city building elements and kind of a city management type thing as well. So you start off by picking one of the various clans, each of which have their own unique bonus that can help you win. The game is currently in early access, but the developers plan to add at least one more clan to the 3 existing ones by the time of release, and that release date is expected to be sometime late 2017. I believe they said 2 to 6 months from the day of release, which was February, so probably around August at the latest. Now after choosing your clan, you get loaded onto a map, and again it's completely randomly procedurally generated, and you're given this initial claimed tile basically that you begin your conquest in. This is all live, not turn-based like Civilization, so you must act swiftly so you don't fall too far behind. It's definitely a live strategy game like StarCraft or Warcraft or anything like that. You don't have the time to just sit there and think while you're waiting for your turn, and you can figure out what you want to do with individual units. Using your villagers, you have to gather these different resources, construct new resource buildings like logging camps or merchant quarters, build new houses to increase your population, and then ensure you have enough food and wood to be able to survive. So the game actually has this like weather mechanic that adds a really interesting element to it. I felt it to be pretty unique. I don't play too many strategy games, or I haven't recently I should say, but this was a new thing to me that I haven't seen before. Basically, as you go through, there's a cycle that goes through the years. Every winter, your camp actually consumes a lot more firewood to keep the fires warm and keep the people healthy. And then also you get your food production really nerfed, so you can't gather berries as much, or your farms are at a lower production rate and things like that too. So what this means is that you actually have to kind of be careful how quickly you expand, because if you overexpand too quickly, you'll actually starve out during the winter and you'll lose. Your villagers start getting sick, and then once they're sick, they slowly lose health and they'll eventually die. Now you can mitigate these effects by doing things like corralling sheep that you might find, which is like an extra resource tile that you can find with sheep in it. You can research these different traits that'll help you survive more efficiently, things like that that'll really help out in the long run. But in the beginning, it's really a micromanaging, like I have to do this and this and this, very much like other strategy games where if you just slip up a little bit, you could screw your entire game. Now, outside of those natural elements, I guess, that you have to battle, there's also natural events that'll happen. So basically, there'll be things like maybe an earthquake will set fires to buildings, or you'll have a food shortage because there's going to be rats that infested your food and you have to throw it all out, unless you build certain things like a grain silo. Now, you'll get a warning about the event coming up, so normally you have time to prepare, but sometimes the warning's a little bit too late, or you might be in a bad position to start with, and by the time you get that warning, it'll say in 3 months this will happen, and I mean it just kind of really messes up your game, and again you might just completely lose if you aren't prepared properly for that. So you can do things again, making sure you have enough food stocked, or making sure that your silos are built to be able to protect the grain from the rat infestation. If there's an earthquake, you want to have enough wood and gold to be able to repair your buildings that are caught on fire, things like that. Now finally, outside of those things, you have various NPCs that'll attack you as well. So there's 3 other clans, which we'll talk about in a minute. Those are all fighting for dominance to win the game. But you also see things like these tiles will have wolves in it, or a bear, or these kind of other creatures. I can't remember what they call them, but they're kind of like a mystical creature you'd see in Norse mythology. And you want to send warriors to fight and kill them, pretty regularly, if not actually take over the tile too. And if you don't, basically what happens is they have a random chance, every so often, basically it rolls a die in the background, and they have a random chance to enter your borders, attack, and kill every worker that you have there. Sometimes if like the AI enters your stuff, then the other clan will start destroying your buildings or take over your tile with all the buildings in it. So again, it's something where, you might not want to take over every tile because that costs resources as well, but you might want to continually clear out the tile of the wolves so they don't come in and kill your workers when you're not prepared to defend it. Now, the other clans, as I mentioned, they're actually fairly difficult. Now, in a typical strategy fashion, and in the current build at least, the AI does cheat. This kind of happens in every strategy game, and it seems like they always know when to attack you, when it's going to hurt you the worst, and as the game goes on, they get more and more aggressive, of course, too. So they kind of seem to attack you as a priority over the other AI elements, or the other AI clans, I should say. Again, that's just kind of in the current build, and I'm sure more balancing will happen as different patches come out to make this a little bit more or less fair, depending on how the devs want to go. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting, but those AI, sometimes they just really beat you down and you don't get a break. And, it can be a little bit more difficult like that too. I was playing on, I think, easy mode to begin with, and it's been a while since I've actually played any type of strategy game like this where there wasn't a turn base. So I definitely took a learning curve to be able to get back into the swing of things and be able to expand, at the right pace and everything like that without really screwing myself over. So even on the easiest difficulty, the AI was still kicking my butt and I was having trouble winning. Then I started getting win conditions. I think I won 3 or 4 different times, and I bumped up the difficulty, and it was a good challenge for me at like the normal average difficulty. I'm not a very great strategy player by any means, so those real-time strategy games just can really screw with me. So with that said though, the AI was, like I said, difficult, but not unbeatable at those levels of difficulty at least. Now, talking about the win conditions, a lot of these strategy games have different ways you can win. Not all of them have this, but most of them do nowadays. So the ways you can win that I can remember right now off the top of my head are, you can do the basic domination victory where you defeat every other clan that's there. So the 3 enemy AI clans, you'll destroy every last unit of theirs or take over all their tiles so they can't do anything else. You can also do like an expansionist type win, which is owning a certain number of tiles and holding and defending them for a certain amount of time. And I believe that one also includes like a merchant part of it where you have to also have so much gold in your bank. And then there's also one which includes like researching all the great research items. So as you research, there's like these great research pieces that unlock after you get so much wisdom, and they do really big benefits, like maybe 20% reduction of wood cost or something like that. So if you get all of those unlocked, it's kind of like researching all your epics or wonders in civilization, where you get the intellect victory, the merchant trading victory, or the domination victory by just kind of being a warmonger and just destroying everything. So honestly, for me, the gameplay was really great. Again, even on the easiest difficulty, it was a challenge for me at first and really kind of tested my skill to get me ramped up and get that learning curve again. Once I kind of got my handle on everything, bumping up to the normal difficulty, I kind of lose half the time, I win half the time. It's a really good challenge for me. I know that some people might find it easy or maybe more difficult, but for me, it was a good challenge. Now, looking into the visuals, I found the game to be quite beautiful. In strategy games, I kind of overlook things like graphics up to a point because you have this top-down perspective. You aren't getting in close to look at every single detail as you would in something like a first-person game where, you're walking through and exploring the world. But Northgard, they really did give a good show in my opinion. The workers have all their own little personal animations depending on what job they're doing. The modeling's well done for the different creatures and housing and things like that too. And, the textures are pretty pleasant as well. I was impressed with it from the start, and while it's not as detailed as some AAA games that are out there, it's still a pretty good showing with its own sense of character in my opinion. Now, moving quickly through audio, I found the sounds in Northgard to be pretty pleasing to the ear in my opinion. There's a soundtrack that plays through, and of course that's always going to be great if they have a soundtrack, and it just adds a little bit of ambiance for you as well. But then the things like, the little things that you get, the various commands that you give, the voice acting you hear from the different workers and stuff like that, the sound effects of the battles of the beasts and stuff like that too as you fight them, it just all really plays well together and kind of just fits. I didn't see anything that was terribly missing or anything that could really be improved. That it's something where if you ask me what it could be done better, I wouldn't be able to tell you, oh, you need to do this to make the game even better. For me, I mean, it was good. It was a complete game at this point, even in early access. Finally, I always like to talk about replayability. So for Northgard, it's typical that you'll find everything you find in a normal strategy game. You can play it as many times as you want, trying out the different clans that are there, different strategies, attempting the different win conditions with each clan. There's also over 30 achievements on Steam, so if you're into the achievement hunter type thing, or you have certain things that you want to try to do, that'll give you a good idea of some other ways you can try to beat the game or something like that too. And really, the game's in early access, which means that you're getting a complete game now. In my opinion, it's a complete single player game that you can play over and over again from the start. Now, talking about single player, the developers do plan to add multiplayer support in the future, and they said basically they want to have it by the time the game's launched to full release, which again, at the latest they're thinking August 2017. Of course that date's to be determined, but at the end of this year basically we'd be looking at multiplayer as well. So I know my coworker has the game. We're really excited to be able to play against each other, and I mean, AI is great, but we all know in strategy games that playing against another human is where that real magic happens in replayability, and being able to have like a true test of your abilities is playing against an actual human instead. So really, I mean, it's kind of exciting that they're going to be adding that, but even if you don't have that now and you picked up the game today, you still get a lot of replayability out of it, just from the different clans, the different strategies, win conditions, and things like that. So overall, I mean, just to wrap everything up completely, I really enjoyed Northgard. I mean, it's a game that I purchased myself, where, a lot of the games I get, I review them. They're gifted to me by a publisher or developer. A lot of these indie titles don't have the same marketing budget, so they'll say, here's a key, say whatever you like about it, no bias, and, let me know what you think, basically. So with this one, I actually went through and bought it at full price. I didn't wait for a sale or anything like that. And I bought it knowing it's in early access, which has been kind of a sin for a lot of people lately. But for me, this is a complete game as it stands now. If the developers gave up and didn't do anything else with it, to me it's a complete game. I didn't have any issues, no bugs or anything like that. There was one small hiccup that I had early on, I think I bought the game a day or two after it came out, and really there was an issue where at startup the game would crash for certain users. I happened to be one of those users, so there was a couple days I couldn't play the game at all. But then there was a patch that came out. The developers were at a development conference, GDC, in San Francisco. So I mean, really good excuse. It's a small team. They went to a conference. This bug wound up happening. They couldn't patch it till they got back. But once they got back, it was patched within a day, I want to say. So I mean, really, no big issues that I've had at all. Some people have reported minor, bugs here or there with different things on visuals or currency and stuff like that, which is a little bit expected in early access, but overall the game is complete in my opinion. So for $19.99, I really feel the game's worth the price as it stands. Knowing that they're going to be adding even more features, at least one more clan, multiplayer support, and I mean whatever else they decide to throw into the bunch here, to me it's a total buy if you're into strategy games like this. With that said, I mean, I've said it before, I'm not too much of a strategy player, I haven't played many recently, but coming from me, in that type of paradigm, this is a game to buy. I really enjoyed it a lot. So, guys, I've been Thomas, aka Wise. I'd like to thank you again for watching the review. Check out my other reviews in the playlist down below, and we'll see you next time.